All right, welcome back to another Corona Geek, here where we talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. Today we're joined by Dyck from Tap for Tap. Hey, Eric.
How's it going?
It's good. It's going really well. Eric's going to walk
Cool.
us through some of the recent updates that they've made to the Tap for Tap plugin for Corona SDK. So that's some exciting stuff.
Totally.
So, Eric, so for those who aren't familiar with Tap for Tap, tell us, what it does and how it helps mobile developers.
Okay, so Tap for Tap has two main components. The first is how we started, and it's sort of in the name. If you think about it, Tap for Tap, we are a tap exchange. So we're a user engagement exchange for mobile app developers. So that's how we began with this idea that you can install our SDK, begin showing ads for other applications. Anytime one of your users taps on one of those ads, you instantly earn a tap credit, which then you use sort of instantaneously. We start promoting your app until we get you that same tap for tap. So it's a really good way for developers who have a small or moderate user base or a large user base essentially to be able to leverage that in order to go out and get new users for essentially no cost, for no sort of cash outlay for you. All you've got to do, the only cost you have there is that you're showing ads to your users essentially. So that's the tap exchange component. And then on top of that, we built a straight monetization network, which is just going to work like any other ad network, except a little bit better because we're really proud of it. But basically, it's you're going to be showing ads for the app developers out there who are paying, or in our case, we've just become RTB compliant, which is something maybe we can talk about later. But we're actually going to be able to. We actually have a number of different partners bidding on your ad impressions. We give you a sort of generous rev share, and then you earn ad revenue. And the novel idea with Tap for Tap is that you have a slider. So you can choose in your account whether you want to show ads for other applications on the Tap Exchange or whether you want to slide it over to make money. So get users, you're going to show the Tap Exchange, make money. You're going to show 100% paid ads essentially, or you can slide it somewhere in the middle, which is what a lot of our developers are doing right now.
Okay, that makes sense. So what's the difference then between, I mean, if you're promoting your app on someone else's app while by the Tap Exchange, what's the difference between the Tap Exchange and self promotion?
So self-promotion is a tool that we just had massive sort of requests. We had a lot of different requests from developers because a lot of most developers, they don't just make one app; they'll make a portfolio or several. And a lot of developers will make apps that are themed somehow closely together. And so self-promotion is a further toggle. So you've got this first toggle where you first decide whether you want to do get more users or make money essentially, and then from there you can choose of the percentage that you want to show Tap Exchange ads. You can then further divide that to show your own application. So instead of showing other people's ads with self-promotion, if you select a 50-50 for instance, you'll show 50% of other people's apps and then 50% of your own apps. And we see people using this to promote their other apps in their portfolio, as well as upgrades. Sometimes you can, so say you've got the Face Juggler app and you want to have people update to the Face Juggler Pro. You can show an ad for Face Juggler Pro and try to urge an upgrade with the self-promotion tool as well. So it's a good sort of total package for app developers, we find.
So it's kind of like having your own in-house ad network without having to build it yourself.
That's kind of the idea, exactly. And you can leverage the power of our, we've had 12,000 people sign up for Tap for Tap, and I think right now we have between 5,000 and 6,000 actually active live app developers, which we're really kind of happy with. And so you kind of leverage the power of the community in order to grow your own success.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So along those lines, if a developer doesn't have an existing customer base, how should they use Tap for Tap to grow? And then conversely with that, should they use Tap for Tap different once they get the user base? And what do you see developers doing right now?
So that's a good chicken or egg type question. If you have 0 installs, how are you going to leverage your users in order to get more users? So that's obviously. So you want to go through the regular steps of launching an app, and there's tons of resources out there about how to sort of get that initial burst of people, users that are using your app essentially. But on Tap for Tap, you could start with a paid promotion campaign. So we have CPC campaigns that are working quite well. We have developers bidding anywhere from, I'd have to look at the numbers, but I think it's around 5 cents per click essentially. And you could start with a budgeted maybe $100 or $50 to $100 CPC campaign, which allows you to kind of help build up your base. And there's lots of other ad networks that you can go out to and do a little media buying in order to generate some more installs for your app. But that's a good way to get going on tap. Once you have the SDK installed, you also have access to this paid promotion platform that allows you to advertise your app for around 5-6 cents a click, depending on where you want to target your ads.
Okay, so you're kind of, as you say, priming the pump, and then and letting things
Exactly.
take a more organic approach after that.
So yeah, so your second piece to that question is once you have a user base, and this is actually why we built the monetization network, because we have these developers that had a little user base, they'd use us to grow their user base, and then they'd leave us once they had a good user base, and then they'd go monetize with AdMob or one of the other the competitors that shall remain nameless. So that's why we added the monetization component, so that developers can stay within Tap for Tap and kind of have the best of both worlds. So now what we see developers doing, they sort of prime the pump with a paid promotion campaign. The other thing that you can do, obviously, is if you've got an app that has an existing user base, you can use the Tap Exchange to reap the benefits of that. You can earn credits on an existing app and then spend them, not on the one that already has installs, but spend them on your credits to promote apps that don't have users yet. So that's another way, if you already have an existing user base, that we find a lot of developers using. Then once you've got a user base, we see developers sliding that slider over to make money, and then they're trying to monetize those users a bit more. And it's kind of a cycle too, because then you can put back, if you like, some of your earnings into a paid promotion campaign, and you can really keep things going from multiple angles. And we see the way we're kind of talking about the Tap Exchange now is as a perpetual engine for user acquisition. It's app developers aren't always they're not always marketing mavens. They're not always really adept at going in and doing lots of media buying. Some are, and more power to the ones that are. But the really good thing about the Tap Exchange is it's sort of this perpetual engine that you can just kind of stick in your app, and it's just going to perpetually bring new users to your apps, and so that's how we see people using it right now.
Yeah, it's always great when you can leverage a tool that does something extremely well for you, so that you can focus, put that aside and focus on something else, the thing that you really do well, because not
Exactly.
very few people do everything extremely well.
Yeah, just you and me, obviously, right?
So,
I wanted to just give you a quick note about this really disgusting background behind me. This is my personal office, but the good news is my wife and I are having a child. But it's amazing. You already have some kids, right?
oh yeah, absolutely, two of them, yeah. But we're way past
It's
all that.
the collecting stuff thing. We've got everyone giving us presents. We've got so much. I have 5 different ways to carry this baby now. It's going to be fantastic. But that's just a quick little side note there.
Well, congratulations. Yeah, that's always an exciting time, but it can
So
be
excited.
it's chaos.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for the have my world rocked.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Or I
Exactly.
think.
So what are you seeing that the developers are having the most success with right now in terms of tap
Um,
for tap?
so essentially, it's that mix, and it's really about finding the right mix for you, depending on where your user base is. But the stuff that we're seeing is we have a really good retention rate. Developers who kind of come to us quite often will stay with us, which is something that we prize pretty highly, with pretty good customer service, and then that the tool is working for developers. So we're seeing developers who started with us maybe 6 months, maybe even a year ago. They're now releasing their second or third wave of apps, and then they're using the cachet or the earning ability of these apps that have been on the network for a long time to launch their new apps. So that's something that's working really well. Paid promotion is working quite well. We're seeing developers do a couple hundred installs a day kind of thing on this on the paid promotion side of things. And then the other thing on the monetization side, interstitials are just really the way to go. We're seeing in terms of monetization. Especially if you can be clever about how you integrate them, and you find a really good balance between setting your users' expectation about when they're going to show up. So you're not hammering with them. You're not hammering them with interstitials necessarily. You're not plastering your screen necessarily with banners. But at the right time, if you use an interstitial, we find you get great results from a ECPM and a sort of conversion percentage standpoint.
It's interesting that you say that because a lot of times I think people are eager to get a result right away, so they tend to be heavy-handed with ads and things like that, and that's really a turnoff to most consumers.
Hmm.
So they actually get an inverse result, right? Because people are like, well, this ad, this app kind of sucks, so they delete it or
Yeah.
whatever. But you can't get around the fact that when something is in your face, the user has to make a decision as to what to do about it. So interstitials, it makes sense that would be a good producer because it's in your face. That sort of
And
thing.
it's really key that you sort of you got to make a user understand the value of your app before you start hammering them with ads essentially. So interstitials work really great when you throw them up, yeah, in between levels on a game or in between actions when a user has sort of gotten something from your app, and then there's a moment where they're waiting for the result perhaps, and then you can kind of put something there. It's almost like the savvy modern app user. There's a certain expectation that okay, here's the ad. I'm gonna here's what I'm gonna have to do, and then move on. But if you're doing it on launch the first time that they perhaps open the app or something like that, that's really not a great first impression for most users. But again, it can be an effective method. So it's really up to you to test and see what works best.
You're right. It's actually, yeah, it's like kind of like making a marriage proposal on the first date, right? You're
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Or do you want to date my friend? That's pretty much what it is. If you try to you try to go for a first date and you're like, why don't you try my friend first, and then come back to me? That doesn't really make sense.
yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sure your friend would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Uh, well, you said two things that are interesting there. One was almost the concept of reinvesting what you've been able to produce with your apps, whether that's financially or with credits and things like that, and also having a portfolio of apps. I was talking with a developer last night who was commenting on the fact that having one or two apps is great, but when you have a portfolio of apps, it seems like if you can get a following of loyal customers, they look at the other apps that you have and then they wind up buying or using those as well, and it just seems to compound itself. So having a portfolio in this case really seems to make a lot of sense as well because of the tap exchange and the fact that you can roll um, your progress back into your campaigns to further things along.
Yeah, and everyone I've talked to from Carter Thomas at Blue Cloud Solutions or Chad Muretta or all these guys that sort of are really doing app development as a business. Austin Church is a really good friend of mine. He talks about this quite a lot as well. And you basically you don't think of, if you're building it for a business, if you really want to build that sort of idea of an app empire, it's really important that you don't think about each app. You only focus on the one app. You should try to think of a sort of this cloud of related apps and how they can, and then theme them in ways that make them attractive to each other. So when you've got when you're doing a self-promotion campaign and your apps are themed, even in similar colors or similar design strategies or similar content kind of areas, the conversion rates are just massive on self-promotion campaigns, upwards of 30 or 40% when someone's like, oh, I'm on this app, this one looks kind of the same or a little bit slightly different angle, and those things convert very, very well.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. No, okay. So I want to move on to the install calculator that you guys just released. So what is that and how does it work?
Okay, so the tap exchange. Some developers get it right away, and they really sort of see the value in putting these ad impressions in and spitting out engagement for themselves. But we wanted a way that developers could just conceive of it a little bit easier because it's not a traditional marketplace. There isn't the currency isn't a dollar essentially. It's maybe developers are used to this idea of you earn a dollar and you spend a dollar. But on that side, when you do that, you've got people taking cuts on both sides. And the beauty of the tap exchange is that it just sort of it's this exchange back and forth with. There is one cut taken out of it. We do take a cut to keep the lights on at Tap for Tap. We take 20% of the ad impressions. But we wanted to create an install calculator essentially that gave developers an ability to understand what they could be doing, the amount of installs essentially they could be generating from the ad impressions that they show on the network. So we essentially just ran some basic calculations across the network based on category. It's essentially based on category and platform to show if you give this many impressions to tap for tap, on average, this many installs results on the other side of things. So it's a really good way for developers to be able to kind of conceive of what value the Tap Exchange can bring for them. So essentially, all we did was, it's a very simple calculation. It's the conversion rates from each category by platform, and when you put your information in, it sort of gives you a very rough idea of what you could be earning on the Tap Exchange.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, that's fair. And then most things like that are just to give you a rough idea anyway, right? Just so you know. And it's probably an average, so mileage may vary. But
mileage may vary, and obviously, apps that are really well designed work very well. Apps that are bright and cheery and you can tell are professional obviously are going to work better than maybe some of the more beginner-looking apps. So that's obviously a major factor in there as well. The one thing that we originally thought about doing, and I urge developers to do this as well, to give them even a clearer idea of potentially what the value the Tap Exchange can bring, because essentially you've got the amount of impressions that you're willing to give the Tap Exchange, and then if you know on average how much money you would regularly receive from maybe another ad network or from Tap for Tap for those impressions, and then you get a number of how many installs that the Tap Exchange would bring you, you can then use what you would have earned and the installs you got to figure out exactly what those installs are actually costing you. Because as I mentioned, there is no cost with the Tap Exchange. You're not outlaying any cash, but there is a hidden cost, which is there's an opportunity cost, which is I could be showing ads instead of the Tap Exchange ads, and that can give you a really good idea of what these installs cost. And we may eventually move down the line that we'll do an opportunity cost calculator or something like that. But for now, it's something developers can do pretty easily to see what the actual opportunity cost of the installs is. And when we ran the numbers, they're pretty good. Like most categories, you're coming in at under $1 for these, between 50 cents and $1 essentially. In some categories, it's like 10 cents. It's really, really cheap for this opportunity cost. But it's hard. It's a hard thing for us to run because we don't know exactly, because developers are earning massive, variances with their eCPMs across different networks and different apps and things like that. So it's difficult for us to calculate.
You ever listen to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad?
No. I'm familiar with him.
Yeah. He does this cash flow quadrant sort of thing. And anyway, I went and saw him speak live one time, and he talked about having money, having your income and your expenses. Right, and it doesn't matter how good your income is if your expenses are sort of just draining, like almost like a pool, right? If you're putting water in the pool, but if it's constantly draining faster than you can put the water in, then you're not making any ground. And so as you're talking about opportunity costs and things like that, hidden costs and stuff like that, it makes a lot of sense that if you can make more money for doing the same thing that you're already doing, then you would want to do that, right? If you could cut your expenses, keeping with the analogy there, if you could cut your expenses, the same amount of money would be coming in the door, but you would be able to keep more of it.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. That's how I equate that. So yeah, that's great to have a calculator that gives you that sort of
gives you an idea.
An idea.
I know all about cutting costs now that I've got a kid on the way. My wife's just coming down with an iron fist on all my discretionary expenses, which is a good thing. It's good to tighten the old belt every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. It really is. Yeah. Okay, so there's the Tap for Tap plugin that's in the Corona directory. So what does that plugin do for developers, and what's the easiest way for a Corona SDK developer to get started with it?
Well, basically, you want to go to the Corona plugin directory and search for Tap, and there's a write up there. There's some videos. There's some sort of explanation of exactly how to put it in there. It's going to be able to give you this ability to have this, everyone says one-stop shop, but it's a one-stop shop for helping you grow your app business, essentially, in the ways that I've described with the Tap for Tap cross-promotion tool, where you're exchanging with other developers, the Tap for Tap self-promotion tool, where you're going to be building a network of your own applications, and then the paid side of things, which is, show ads, earn cash, and then potentially spend some upload some funds, and then and do a CPC campaign to also grow your installs.
Now,
so that's that's basically it.
I watched the video that you guys added to the documentation, and it's, I mean, it's a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes long or something. It's really straight to the point. So the thing that I saw there was, like you say, go to the plugin directory and look for look for the documentation and stuff. But then it was going over to Tap for Tap and signing up for the account. And I think in the video it was like maybe 2 or 3 lines of code. Put in your
Yeah, it's a fairly simple integration, especially with the way Corona makes things simple. And so we've, Phil, the guy who narrates that video there, is pretty happy with how the Corona plugin turned out, and so I think he's made it as simple as possible to integrate. So thanks for bringing that up. After you integrate that SDK, you're going to want to go over and create an account on tapfortap.com, which is obviously a free account and very easy to 5 fields essentially of information.
Yeah. It seemed, and in the video, it just seemed like it was you needed your API key or from Tap for Tap, and then you were ready to rock and roll.
Pretty much it, yeah.
So now, what were the recent updates to the plugin?
So when I was reading your wording on this, it's interesting. The plugin, the recent updates to the plugin are that it works with our new SDK. So the plugin is essentially doesn't have a huge amount of increased functionality itself, but our SDK 3 release, which we did, I guess, about a month ago now, has a lot of great additions to Tap for Tap. The main addition on the Tap Exchange side is that we totally redesigned how our ads look, and I'm really thrilled with that. I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can. Can you see iPad stuff? No, you can't really see. Anyway, you can go to tapfortap.com and to the developers section and look at the ad units that we have laid out there. We totally overhauled how our Tap Exchange ads look, and that's we weren't quite thrilled for a while in the beginning how our ads looked, and I'm really thrilled with how they are now. They're converting quite a bit better. You can choose between a light and a dark theme, and you can still, of course, upload your own custom banners, but just basically the ad appearance on the Tap Exchange side of things. The other big change is that we've really put a focus on interstitials, because we're seeing that that's where the great eCPMs, the great conversion rates are coming from. And so we totally redid the way that we animate our interstitials. So basically, we changed our X button. We had this sort of staticky thing on either side of the interstitials. We got rid of that and made it sort of a slight transparency so that you don't really feel like you're being taken out of the app experience totally. And then we animated the way the interstitials come up in this bright and cheery way, and it's just we just really wanted to fine-tune how the appearance of all of our ads looked, and that's where the bulk of the changes went. There's also with the new SDK, there's more ability to flag the kinds of ads that you may not want to appear in your app, which is something that we've had a lot of developers request. So you can now, if you don't want dating ads in your app, or you don't want mature ads in your app, or mature has always been there, but we added dating. We also added rude, because there's a fine line between sort of mature and immature when it comes to, like, you may not want fart apps inside your app, and that's fine. That's what rude kind of filters out. And mature obviously will filter out anything adult or gambling or just sort of bikini girls or anything like that. We have a few of those app developers on the network, and that will filter that right out for you. So those are the main things with SDK 3. But yeah, those are the top line things.
No, I like that. I like that it's a user experience, because at the end of the day, it's part of, for the developer, it's part of the overall package, right? I mean, putting a third party anything into your app means that you need to have some sort of, it needs to be pleasing overall, right? Because the whole app is a whole user experience. So that makes complete sense that you guys are focusing on that. That's great. So
yeah.
So what's the best way for developers to provide feedback on the plugin? You said that there was the requests for features and things like that. What's the best way for people to provide feedback?
Well, currently we're finding that the best way to do things is on. First of all, there's the Tap for Tap forum. There's the Tap for Tap section of the Corona Labs forum, and that's something that we're checking all the time. And but we also really like to have a ticket flagged in our own system. So sending an email to support@tapfortap.com is the best way to do everything. That's actually what we're pushing every request into, and then from there we're filtering account questions and things like that, basically. But sending an email to support@tapfortap.com automatically creates a ticket and lets us go through things in sort of a systematic fashion. We have really in-depth FAQs as well on our documentation portal for the plugins and for account questions. So we're really urging developers to kind of go through those things first. But after you've exhausted that, support@tapfortap.com or the Corona Labs forum as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, you guys are top notch on customer support. I have to say, I like how responsive you guys are with either on social media or in the forums or email. I mean, it's amazing how. I don't know how many people are at Tap for Tap, but there's always a reply to something. So
We're a lean team. We're a very lean team, but we've just put a really strong, with our sort of focus on indie and sort of indie and established app developers. We just recognize that support is just such a key thing that people want to have.
yeah, yeah,
That's why
exactly.
we do it.
Customer support goes a long way. I don't think a lot of people realize that, but it does. It goes a long way, especially in a world full of kind of faceless corporations and stuff like that. It's good. So what do you guys have plans for in the future? What's coming up next?
So we kind of feel like the platform has gotten to a state where we're ready for a lot of volume essentially, and volume is actually really in the past couple weeks volume has been really skyrocketing, which is great. We feel the platform is at a really good level. The Tap Exchange is humming along, working well, pumping out thousands of installs a day, and then we've made a lot of developments on the monetization side. We've become RTB compliant, which essentially means that now we are going to have about 5 different ad networks who are bidding on your ad impressions. So when our SDK when you call our SDK and say show me an ad, that request then goes into our system and we farm that out to these 5 different ad networks. And those ad networks look at every bit of information that's appended to that impression and they bid on it. And in doing that, we're really starting to see some eCPMs rise up. And so essentially we're going to keep building the back end, keep building out the ability to raise up those eCPMs and kind of drive competition among ad networks who are bidding on these impressions in order to drive up eCPM. So that's a big focus for us going forward. We've got some other content stuff that we want to put in. We want to give developers even more control over the kinds of ads that go in their app. So that's another area that we're working on. And just trying to bring on some bigger app developers on the platform. We're really trying to help developers understand the value of the Tap Exchange as even part of your ad mix. So maybe you've got a lot of ad impressions and you really want to monetize, you want to make a lot of as much money as possible from your ad impressions, that's fine. But we really do recommend the developers at least try the Tap Exchange just to kind of get that added incremental boost in new users that you can then show ads to and monetize them as well. So even though you're giving up even 20% of your ad mix to the Tap Exchange, you're going to get 100, depending on the volume you're putting in, hundreds of new users a day that you can then expand your monetization schedule with essentially.
Yeah, I really like the fact that it's not it's not an all or nothing. You can go in and make adjustments based on what you're doing, and then everything is so dynamic these days that there may be times when you are doing a campaign when you want to push in a certain direction, and then later when that campaign is over, you want to pull back and go somewhere else. So that's great that you guys let the developers do that.
Yeah, every savvy developer that I know that I've talked to is working with more than one ad network, and we understand that that's the environment. That's why we're MoPub compliant, and that's why we work with AdMob mediation and everything like that. And that's why AdMob mediation built AdMob mediation, because they recognize that there's all these different competing technologies out there, and it really is up to the developer to figure out what is their best ad mix. And that's why I really recommend that developers go out there and just test. And it works in our favor too. Even when we push developers to test other ad networks and things like that, it means that they'll come back and test us again when they've had a chance. So it's really good for the ecosystem to have us all competing to improve results for app developers and then have the app developers continually come back and test to see where we're at. So that's something that I urge for sure.
Cool, awesome. So, what do you think? So we're 2014 is right around the corner. What do you think it'll be like for app developers in terms of monetization? What do you see being the focus?
The one other thing we want to build in is video. Be able to show video ads, and I think video ads are going to increase. You're only going to see more and more of those. I think you're going to see. I think RTB is definitely RTB is a really interesting technology, and I urge developers to kind of go out and try to understand that a little bit, because I think programmatic buying is definitely the way of the future. It really allows advertisers to pay you more for your good inventory, and pay you and potentially pay you less for your crappier, so your deeper session depths and things like that. But I think RTB is definitely the way of the future. I think video ads are going to be big, which is why we're going to be building out that functionality. And then balanced monetization plans too that aren't just ads. You really want to try to. I've recently got into Clash of Clans, and that's not an app of the future necessarily. I'm a little late to the party on that one, but they are just so good. I was 15 minutes in and I was like, I need to spend $5. I absolutely need another builder here, and I think that that's where the millions of dollars, the big play is finding ways to integrate in-app purchases in really smart ways. And in the beginning, you want to have a platform so you're still making money with ads, perhaps, but then really getting savvy about how you integrate perhaps in-app purchases or upgrades to paid apps or things like that, where that's where our self-promotion tool kind of comes in a little bit. So I think those are some trends we'll see in the coming year.
Yeah.
Just sort of increase.
Yeah, as my grandfather used to say, the drop fills the bucket, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's coming in from from an ad or from an in-app purchase or whatever. It all collectively goes into the bank account. So you don't want to exclude one or the other.
Yeah.
So
Do you see I'm just curious too. Do you see any other trends with the power of devices increasing, the proliferation, like the 5C that's sort of really being marketed at third world and developing countries essentially?
yeah.
Do you see the technology increasing the capability for these apps?
Well, like you said, video is going to be a big thing moving forward, no matter what. It's a lot of the things that you've talked about, interstitials, and also just in-house ads for people. So I don't think it's so much about the hardware itself, so much as it's just about the creativity of the developer and how the thing is designed, and when you introduce uh, the ads into the value proposition. When do you actually tell people about something? When are they invested enough to care? And I think
Yeah.
that level of sophistication is what it's really about, more than just the technology piece of it. It's just about human patterns of behavior and understanding how your customer base and stuff like that.
That's a really good point. And when I talk about programmatic buying, it still needs that human touch. It still needs the when to use it and for maximum impact. AI isn't we don't have Skynet yet. It's not that intelligent. So you really need to have that human touch. Thankfully, because we're all human and
You're
we
right.
don't want the machine taking over quite yet. I just watched this amazing documentary last night on Nova, PBS Nova, one of my favorite shows, and they had a documentary called "Making Things Faster," and it was all about it was about making a faster boat, making a faster runner. Amazing sort of insights into that kind of stuff. But towards the end, they talked about the speed of information transfer and how, for instance, Kansas City right now is this part of this Google program where they're wiring the whole city with fiber optic cables. And just when you look at the development of sort of technology and the amazing bursts that it's had when the ability to transfer more information faster has grown, so with the telephone and with the train even, and all these, what's his name, the Rockefeller became a global, heir, became this major rich guy in the world because he used a carrier pigeon for the very first time to tell him that Napoleon had lost at the Battle of Waterloo, and then he made all these decisions based on that, and that's how he kind of built his massive fortune, and just because he had that information a little bit quicker. So I'm really interested to see what happens when fiber optic cables become more widespread, and you've got, instead of going from a 10 megabyte or a 1 megabyte per second download to a 300 or 3,000 megabyte a second download. I think that there is a lot of potential for technology to get to whole new levels when that becomes more proliferated.
Yeah, and on the heels of that is really, we're talking about more real time, real time connection between players and between users of devices and things like that. I mean, we have right now we have sort of this pieces of pushes of information and stuff, but there's some players who are doing real time data transfers and stuff like that. But like you say, when we get to the point where the pipeline is so fat that it's just going to explode uh, a whole nother leg of innovation and stuff like that. I actually looked at Kansas City and considered actually moving to Kansas City just for that sheer fact that there was so much going on there in terms of bandwidth.
And I think it will. I think you're going to see so many startups kind of go there, which is great to see, right? It's kind of great to think of the American heartland kind of, reconstituting around technology and drawing technologists in from all over the country. So I hope it works well.
Yeah, I think
Good on you, Google.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the things that the infrastructure, the carriers, and all that stuff like that. I think that's one of the things that they're kind of battling with is they're trying to squeeze as much money as they can out of the existing infrastructure and stuff like that. Whereas Google say, look, okay, that's all great, but once we kind of blow that out and make it available and make it broadband everywhere and make it seamless, then there's a whole nother pile of cash beyond beyond this old infrastructure. So it's interesting to see.
What's AT&T going to do? What are the giants going to do when this all kicks in?
Yeah,
I guess they've got to be adopting this stuff right as we speak.
Yeah, right. It's always the conversation of what have you done for me lately, right? So I mean, you're always as good as your last performance, so they just got to continue to innovate and grow. So
that's why I got to keep coming on your program.
That's right.
I got to remind developers of. I always have such a fun time chatting with you.
Yeah, it's always great. Yeah, excellent. So, okay, well, thanks for being here and for providing the developers with a great way to make money for their apps and everything. And you guys just keep on rocking and doing what you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, we love doing it, and so check out tapfortap.com. Send me an email at eric@tapfortap.com if you have any sort of questions for the founder or anything like that. And we look forward to deepening our relationship with Corona developers. Some of our top developers on the network are Corona based, and we want to keep that going.
All right, well, guys, thanks for joining us today, and do be sure to go check out tapfortap.com, check them out, and be sure to look into the Corona SDK plugin directory and get that plugin so that you can put it right into your app and get started right away. All right.
Awesome.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.